so many times I'm reading the Bible and passages that I've read 100 times, and I read them again and I think, wow, I don't remember that.
That's right. Friends, I let Bill finish his thought before welcoming you back. Welcome back to for the conversation, my friends. He said something so important. I didn't want to interrupt his ideas, and that's right. Scripture is ever ancient, ever new. There's always something that hits us or uh, inspires us or whatever. Um, so let's go to your description of God on page 158. The mercy for his good pleasure. He was before and outside of all that we can see or touch or know. And while he is so grand and unfathomable, in some strange way, he stoops himself down to where we live and touches our tiny lives with his care, with his compassion for us. I thought that was just so beautiful in how you brought out some of the aspects of our loving Father, right?
Well, thank you.
Yes, we thank you for that. That outside of time, and that's kind of I think that's really one of the parts. All right, so two thoughts. He's outside of time and place. He's not sensible, and therefore that we who are sensible, that's where part of the grit comes from. How do you grasp? How do you express that? Some of the great authors describing their encounters with our precious Lord revert to poetry. And I found that very pivotal when you were talking about your own journey with writing this story of poetry. Um, Teresa of Avila is one, John of the Cross is one, but there's this moment where poetry is needed um, to express, you know, the the mercy.
Right. There's a guy, and again, I can't remember his name right now, but I will get you his name, who I kind of stumbled across, who lived in like the second or third century in Syria, considered to be one of the church fathers. And he mainly wrote poetry. And I got a hold of some of his work, and I'm thinking, wow, this guy was writing in like just 2 or 3 centuries after uh, what the New Testament writings are. And I'm thinking, it's like these things are totally fresh and new for today. You know, if you would publish them today, people would think, wow, this is just incredible stuff. They would never guess that this is ancient poetry.
I agree. I agree. Um, oh, yes, the near occasion of sin. Yes, page 37. That was my yes. Often, I think our poor Lord, our poor blessed Lord, gets blamed for a whole lot of problems that really are of our own doing. You know, sometimes He does permit suffering. Of course, He does permit it for some greater good, but oftentimes if we're real honest, we've caused it ourselves because
Yeah.
we let whatever good, right, from the garden, there's an apparent good which is contra to that which we know we should be doing. And and then here comes into some of your typesetting and your italicizing and pulling this out on page 37. And she thinks, so this is within her heart, she thinks, what good can come of seeking my own pleasure, leaving
Talia.
Talia out here and being, here's it, being someplace we ought not be. And some some call that the near occasion of sin. That we, the first posture in walking with our blessed Lord is to have some sense of those near occasions of sins, whatever that might be for different people. That's different things. I know Ted and I.
And for the first two, it was being over in a corner of the garden near a tree that they shouldn't have been near.
That's right. That's right. I remember Ted and I, we were out and about somewhere, and in a engagement party. We stumbled across an engagement party, and they found out we had been married for so many years. I don't know, 40 years, 35 years. We're at 40, 81, 42 years now, 42 and counting.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. And the bride asked, very sincerely, in the midst of their revelry, what advice would you have? And this is advice when asked, I give, you avoid those who speak poorly of your husband, regardless of their title, because that can be a real problem with wives, young wives, to be around others who do not hold their husbands in value. And I said, and regardless of their title. And of course, I meant regardless of their mother, or if it's a sister, or their best friend from high school, or whatever.
Right.
Whatever. That's that near occasion of sin. That's right. It's not always an obvious thing, like the alcoholic maybe shouldn't be going into the bar.
Right.
We all have to be okay. All right. Are there any other themes that come to your heart right now? And then I think in the next episode, if you'd be so kind as to read an excerpt.
Sure.
Then we'll do that. But this kind of will be the wrap up to the synopsis of your story, your themes, or
one thing that's kind of it's the background to the book is not these people's lives, but the people in which they existed. One of the things that really consumed me in writing this book was doing a tremendous amount of research on the Nabateans. When I looked into who this guy might have been, he was rescued on the eastern shore of Galilee. So he apparently lived, or at least at that time, was in the Decapolis, which for much of their history was controlled by the Nabateans. So I thought, well, maybe this guy was a Nabatean. So I started looking more and more into that. In the beginning, the only thing that I knew about Nabatea and about Petra was the brief scene in Indiana Jones: The Last Crusade. I'm sorry to say, that was my only knowledge of it. But the more I found out about these people, the more impressed I was by who they were. They came out of nowhere. Even to this day, nobody really knows who they were before they show up in history. They had no resources whatsoever, no natural resources. They had no technology. They were nomads in the desert, herding camels and sheep and goats. And within about a 100 or 200 year period of history, they went from virtually nothing and nobody to being the economic powerhouse in the Mediterranean basin. And a lot of historians actually believe that they had more economic might than the Empire of Rome. The things that the Roman senators were recorded as writing, they were saying things that sound exactly like what people say today about China, and all of our wealth going to China and all these products coming from China. That's what Romans were saying at that time about Nabatea. They were saying all of our wealth is going to these people because we're buying luxury goods that they have. And they didn't produce any of those luxury goods. They were basically merchants, middlemen, and they figured out how to keep their sources secret and to transport that to the people that wanted to buy it. So it's amazing that they came out of nowhere, they made a name for themselves, and they disappeared almost as fast.
Awesome. Awesome. That would have we would have been sad if we hadn't had that little part in there. All right, my friends, we'll pick up with I'm sure it'll be a beautiful reading from Brock in the next episode. Till then, my friends, be des, Brock Show.